Hello everyone and welcome to our issue of Our Take. I'm Ashwin Ahmed and I'm joined by SNI Editor-in-Chief Nitin Gokhale and SNI Editor Surya Gangadharan. And today we're going to discuss the fallout of the Balakot airstrike. Nitin, if I can turn to you, Prime Minister Imran Khan has described the return of Wing Commander Abhinandan as a statesman-like gesture. What is your reaction to it and what do you think is the fallout of the Balakot airstrike?
Well, I think I'll go in the reverse order. What is the fallout of the Balakot airstrike? I think let's look at it this way, that India has gone where it had not gone before for the last 38 years. And when I say that, it is about crossing the line of control and the fighter jets crossing the line of control in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir and beyond. Balakot, for everybody's information, I'm sure people by now know, but it is in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. And therefore, one must understand that Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is beyond Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. For 38 years, no Indian Prime Minister had given this order to cross the LOC. Even in Kargil, Prime Minister Vajpayee had said that we will not cross the LOC because this is escalatory in nature. So India has actually redrawn one of the red lines both in the mind as well as in the strategic circles of decision making. So that's the first fallout, which means that tomorrow if there is another big strike like this or a big Pulwama-like terrorist attack, then we might see a similar thing happening because the template has been changed by the decision makers. So that's number one fallout. Number two, if you see internationally, no one, not one single country has condemned India's action. In fact, they have said that it was justified, it was a counter-terrorist action, and it was something that India is well within its rights to do because they have been attacked time and again by these terrorists, equipped, supported, trained, and harbored in Pakistan. That's the fallout number two. And number three, this has also unshackled the minds of the military. The military, of course, had given these options even in 2008 after the Mumbai attack. The Air Force had given this option. But there was always the hesitation that if escalation takes place, if Pakistan strikes back militarily, then what do you do? But in this case, by taking this momentous decision, and I call it momentous with great care, India has called Pakistan's nuclear bluff. Because the Pakistanis used to normally say that if you come and attack us militarily, we have nuclear weapons, don't forget, we are both nuclear powers post-1998. But clearly, there is space between the subconventional, where you go and attack the ground forces, go and attack targets inside Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and then go further. The final thing is the nuclear threshold to be crossed. But between that, those two extremes, there is this space opened up after this Balakot attack. That's number three. So, but let me come to what Imran Khan has done. Imran Khan is not doing any favor to India by releasing Wing Commander Abhinandan or having released him. Because in any case, if not on Saturday or not on Friday, he would have had to release him 3 months later. Because he was after all a prisoner of war, even if there is no war. So they had to treat him well, and given that it was all over social media, his capture, his interrogation for a brief period, all that, Pakistan couldn't have harmed him. So it's not as if he's done any favors. Of course, he's trying to project this as a favor and as a very peace gesture, he's called it. But that notwithstanding, I think India had made it clear that there are other things that India will do, irrespective of what happens to Abhinandan, whether he is released today or released tomorrow. And I think Surya had some discussions with officials about this before the decision to release Abhinandan was announced by Prime Minister Imran Khan. So maybe he will be able to give us a little more.
Surya, I want to turn to you now. The international community has been very much on India's side, in the sense that when the Balakot airstrike took place, there was little of the condemnation that that we have seen in the past vis-a-vis Kargil, etc. So do you think there was some behind the scenes diplomacy for a start? Do you think there was some sympathy for India's position post Pulwama? How would you categorize this?
Perhaps there's a combination of all these things working, I think don't forget that the world has wisened up to terrorism, especially after the kind of excesses by the Islamic State and of course by Pakistan's own terror proxies. You've seen Afghanistan going on for so many years now. So I think generally the world understands that terrorism is what it is. It's happening all over Europe now. America's got a taste of it. So they all know what it's about. And I recall after the 26/11 strike, some of our diplomats who traveled overseas, they were all questioned by their Western interlocutors, why is it that you guys have done nothing? So in that sense, Nitin, what you mentioned, I think there's also an awakening for our political class, For the first time, they've gone beyond and seen something which they can do and not be worried about the consequences. So in that sense, I think things have worked well. Yes, I would presume that nobody wants a nuclear war of any kind. They don't want any war of any kind. And there would have been some efforts on the part of a lot of countries, including the P4, P5, to tell the Pakis, well, you've done what you did. India has retaliated. Now it's time to de-escalate. And I think generally the fact that nobody has condemned our action has gone home to the Pakistanis also that that their action has not had, the world is not fooled anymore. And Pakistan will be held to account. So perhaps the best thing now is to hand over this pilot and then try and let things come down.
In fact, I want to point out something apart from what Surya said, that China, Pakistan's all-weather friend, also had a very muted response to India's action. It did not say that we condemn this. It just said that terrorism cannot be used as a state policy, or somebody's territory cannot be used to launch terror strikes, and both should sort of exercise restraint. But basically, it was telling Pakistan to exercise restraint, not go beyond what it has already done or allowed Jaish-e-Mohammed to do. So that's the change, I would think, if you see from 2008. But I also want to point out one more thing before we move on, is that all this decision or this reaction of the world is also an accumulation of India's mature responses over the years, and the kind of responsibility India has shown despite grave provocations like Mumbai attack. I mean, certainly it could have been done immediately, a retaliatory strike, but they decided in their wisdom that time, because India was not in such a good position internationally, globally, like it is today. So it has been helped. Today's government has been helped by an accumulation of goodwill and economic power, economic development, economic progress, and our standing, which of course this government has worked very hard to take it forward in the global arena. So it's a combination of that. So let's not compare both the reactions of 2008 and now. Having said that, it could have been done in 2008, like then Air Chief Marshal Fali Major has said that he had given this option. For whatever reasons, they didn't take that thing, but now India has pushed the envelope. So let's see where it goes now.
Nitin, it's interesting you talk about the international community. Now, our External Affairs Minister, Sushma Swaraj, she's the guest of honor at the OIC. There are reports that Saudi Arabia and the UAE work behind the scenes with Pakistan to get back our wing commander. Do you think now there's a sea change among the Islamic countries in the Muslim world against Pakistan? Do you think that's a little premature? And do you think that India could perhaps benefit from this in the long term?
India has already benefited. If you look at what's happened over the last 5 years, India has had good relations with almost everyone in West Asia, in the Gulf countries. If Qatar and UAE are fighting, they're fighting between themselves, but India has good relations with both. Saudi Arabia and Iran are sworn enemies, but India has good relations with both. Palestine, Israel cannot see eye to eye, but India has relations with both. So therefore, India has worked very assiduously, not just because it wants to woo the Gulf countries, but also because we have great stakes there. We have more than 8 million people working in the Gulf. We have our energy security dependent on the Gulf countries. And there are several other things because most of the FDI is now coming from those countries. So therefore, I think India has worked on a multilateral front to do this. So, and also worked to isolate Pakistan. If you ask me, behind the scene and underneath this entire outreach to the Gulf was also the fact that Pakistan needs to be isolated in various ways. So today, Pakistan has boycotted the inaugural ceremony at the OIC, where External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj was speaking. And in that, clearly she was the guest of honor, first time after 50 years exactly. And if you read the account of what happened in Rabat in Morocco in 1969, this is a great comeback for India, even if it's half century late. But India has now been recognized as a guest of honor or an honored country in an Islamic organization, because India has a great number of Muslims, 18% of our population is Muslim. So that has been recognized. Pakistan does not like it. In fact, they flip-flopped, will attend, not attend, they tried to disinvite India this time. So in a way, India has really worked very hard and is gaining because of that assiduous diplomatic work that has gone in the last so many years.
Surya, if I can turn to you, what has been very significant today is that the Pakistan foreign minister has admitted that Masood Azhar is in Pakistan. And do you think now that the pressure on Pakistan will escalate? Do you think that there is hope that perhaps he could be declared a global terrorist, or is that, or is that still a far-fetched notion?
Well, I don't know. China remains the uncertain factor here. I don't think they're going to jettison their Pakistani relationship, which has been built up over time, over many years. So one would presume that they will perhaps continue on the same track of vetoing any move to designate Masood Azhar on the UN list. I don't think that's going to change immediately. But I think somewhere down the line, China also understands that something has changed, and they saw it. They got it firsthand at Doklam, when we stood them down, when we refused to back down in Doklam, and now this attack across so deep into Pakistan. So there is a new India here, which is more assertive, which understands its interests and is not prepared to stand up for it. So they respect strength. So in that sense, that's good for us, and the Chinese respect strength. As far as Pakistan changing its spots, I don't think it's going to happen tomorrow or day after. It's going to take a long time. The military is heavily invested in terror groups, and the military's control over the budget, the status and lifestyle of their generals and colonels depends on them continuing to dominate Pakistan. So they're not going to give up easily. And I think this terror thing will continue. Maybe they will scale down the kind of attacks, because now there's an element of uncertainty in how India will react, And the last thing the army wants to be told by its own people is that they're incompetent. It undermines the very basis of their control over Pakistan today. So they will, I think, be a little careful. Perhaps the intensity of strikes may come down, but really we'll have to wait and see. We don't know how this animal is going to respond.
Nitin, I'd like to take off from what Surya said. We've had a major victory against terror. But as I think the battle is half won. We have elections around the corner. There is a possibility that terror groups and the Pakistan deep state may heat up things across the line of control, and certainly in Jammu and Kashmir. What is your take on this, and what are the possible countermeasures that India and its military could take with regard to this?
I think what is happening is India is aware, and I think I'll just try to explain a little bit or differ with you on whether we've half won the battle. I think the battle has just begun. The battle has been there for quite some time, but in this case, what has happened is India has shown a different template and has taken a different action. Now, Pakistan does not know how to react to it, and like Surya said, they might scale it down a little bit, but there is no guarantee that the Jaish-e-Mohammed or Lashkar-e-Taiba will not mount an independent attack on India and on something which is completely unexpected, or at some place which is completely unexpected. So India will have to be on its guard, on its vigil over the next 3 months and beyond, because next 3 months are crucial because we have elections coming up, and it's the possibilities for a terror strike are immense in those circumstances. So I think that's challenge number one for the intelligence agencies, for the law enforcers, all that. The second thing about what the army or the air force can do is to maintain pressure on the line of control and again have the combat air patrols along the Pakistani border, because that's exactly why the Pakistanis, according to one report, that 24 of the Pakistani airplanes had tried to intrude in Nowshera sector and 8 of our combat air patrols chased them away. So, notwithstanding the veracity of that report, the fact is India was prepared, but Pakistan was also reckless to attempt and come when the vigil was heightened. So, therefore, nothing can be ruled out, and therefore, I think all the three armed forces are on the heightened alert. There is no mobilization, but certainly there is an heightened alert. So, that will happen in the next 2-3 months. But here on, I think the government has decided, and correct me Surya if I am wrong, I think that the pressure on Pakistan will be kept up on all fronts, not just militarily, but on all fronts. I think that's something that we have been hearing from different people in the government itself.
In fact, just to add, Nitin, you know, you mentioned the speed at which Pakistan reacted. Right. You know, now one has always got the impression, you know, even from the Kargil war and all that, that the Pakistanis perhaps don't do their planning very well,
yes,
or to the extent it should go. You know, so you have this attack happening in broad daylight.
Exactly.
And with no discernible purpose. I mean, what were they attempting
What
to
was
achieve?
the end objective?
Yeah, so this lack of, perhaps all those years of being in power has diluted their professional instincts.
Right. No, that's quite possible, because they didn't think it through clearly, that what was their, or maybe they just thought that they want to appease their domestic audience.
Yeah, it was done for show.
Show, exactly. That we could also go into India, and that's why they did this. And that's where it stands, I think. And that's why they immediately, if you see the statements from the DG ISPR and then Pakistani Prime Minister, they were very conciliatory, yeah, in that sense. And I think that's where it changes, you know, the dynamic, that India's got the Pakistanis in a corner, and that pressure therefore must be kept up.
Surya, I'd like to take you now on what Nitin has said. We, post-elections, the new government will still most probably have to deal with Imran Khan. And so what is your assessment after all these events that have happened? Will we see a more conciliatory Imran Khan, or do you feel that the Pakistan deep state will continue to overshadow him? What is your sense?
You know, Imran Khan is beholden to the army. He is Prime Minister of Pakistan because the army wanted him, a guy like him, you know, with no political experience really, other than agitating in the streets, with no administrative experience at all. And basically he will do their bidding. So his decision to hand over the pilot was perhaps the military told him, you hand him over, and that's it, you know. So I don't think the deep state, its control over this man is going to diminish. I think at some point every Prime Minister of Pakistan has felt the need to break free of the military's shackles, you know, and that will happen inevitably to Imran Khan also. Maybe not now, but in the next few years he will feel the need to, you know, come out and be leader of the people and all that. So that is when the things will start turning against him. But I don't see any real change in terms of how Imran is going to be with us. He's going to be listening to what the army wants, and he'll do what they want.
Nitin, if I can finally conclude on this, there was a perception before these airstrikes that, you know, Pakistan and Pakistan-based terrorists were attacking our soil, and there was a perception that India was a conciliatory, and in some reports we were being described as a weak state.
Or a soft state.
Or a soft state, yes. So now that this impression has been changed with the airstrike, what do you see, how do you see us going forward? Do you see us rise, we already are an emerging global power, but how do you see us on the world stage now?
Well, I don't even want to go to that stage. Let's be much more powerful, much more sort of secure economically and militarily. That's not the point. The point, like I mentioned in my, I think, the first answer, is that having broken these shackles, both in the mind and, you know, in the action of going where no Prime Minister or no military leader had gone before, a new template has been set. So irrespective of who comes to power in the summer elections of this year, every Prime Minister will now be judged by the action taken on a similar provocation from Pakistan or Pakistan-based terrorist groups. So therefore, we have seeing I hate to use that term, but that is the appropriate term, that we are seeing a paradigm shift in our approach to countering terror. So far, we were like a boxer who would take 10 blows, I mean, sort of in a ring is a defensive boxer, taking blows and evading 10 blows, but 2 blows would eventually land on the boxer's body. In this case, that boxer has now decided that we will hit back, after taking 1 blow, we will hit back 2 blows, and we will not hesitate to use the military, the conventional military force, which wasn't the case earlier. We would just play dossier and just do that and be content about it, or we go whining to US or any of the big powers. One of the final points that I want to make is this time in this crisis, it is for the first time that no envoy of either United States or United Nations or UK or France came visiting or rushing to the region, to South Asia, to try and placate both the parties or try and get them to negotiate or whatever. That's the change that India has brought upon itself, that we don't want anybody. We will deal with Pakistan bilaterally, and you want to put pressure, put it on them. We are very clear what we want to do with them. I think that's the change that we should be happy about, and hopefully everyone after this will continue to do what this government has done.
Surya and Nitin, thank you so much for your views. I'm Ashwin Ahmed. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.